Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 11th of April 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So apologies for missing yesterday's episode. It's kind of becoming a regular occurrence for me to miss at least one episode a week now. It's not on purpose. It's definitely not. Just sometimes I run out of time and I've been doing a bunch of stuff around the house, so I get just been really busy. So apologies for that, but yeah, I will hopefully not miss another episode for the rest of this week. But anyway, let's get into the news from the last, I guess, few days actually, since I missed yesterday. This will be covering the news from the weekend as well as yesterday. So the Shapella upgrade is coming tomorrow, I believe. Yeah, April 12th. At 2200 UTC, which is like I believe at 8 a.m. on Thursday, I think for me. So there is going to be a live stream, and you can get all the details here. Pooja shared it from the Ethereum cat herders in this Medium post. There is going to be a stream that you can watch, and you can monitor a bunch of different dashboards and things like that. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to make that stream, but there'll be plenty of other really cool Ethereum people on there for you to watch if you would like to do that. And yeah, there's a bunch of other information in this blog post, as I mentioned, that you can go check out along with what's included in the Shapella upgrade, some PEEP and EIP videos, as well as links to the live stream and the mainnet announcement and stuff like that as well. So you can go check that out. But yeah, withdrawals are finally here, guys. Like, it's pretty crazy that I've been talking about this basically since before the merge, and we're only a day away. I know it's not as exciting as the merge, of course. Nowhere near as exciting, of course. But personally, I think it's exciting for a bunch of different reasons. As you know, the merge was exciting for a certain set of reasons, and withdrawals are exciting for another set of reasons, which I've gone through plenty of times in the past. So I'm not going to rehash everything that I've been saying around that. But I think in the coming weeks and months, it's going to be very interesting to see how the staking landscape changes because of this, and how the dominance of different staking services change. I'm very curious because of there's two kind of main things that I think is going to drive it. Is the race to be like the premier LSD on the Ethereum kind of staking ecosystem. Obviously right now that is STETH with Lido, and you've seen what's happened to the LDO token. It's worth quite a bit, even though it really doesn't do anything, right? It's a governance token. It's still worth quite a bit because owning that market definitely lends a lot of value to a token, and it's worth more than the RPL token, even though the RPL token is worth quite a bit now. It's worth more than that. When, in my humble opinion, I think the RPL token is a lot better as a token, obviously, because it's got a lot more uses than a governance than just being a governance token. But yeah, obviously, Rocket Pool has less of a market share. But in saying that, when Rocket Pool does their Atlas upgrade, and when you can do smaller mini pools and all the other stuff that Rocket Pool has coming along with this great reshuffling I've been talking about post withdrawals, we could see that change dramatically from there. And it's not just Rocket Pool, of course. There are plenty of other staking services that are online or coming online or are kind of going through their guarded launch, and will raise the caps on how much ETH they're willing to take in. And obviously the withdrawal event is a massive kind of de-risking event for the whole staking ecosystem, so that's going to lead to a lot of increased competition as well, I believe. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be monitoring over the next weeks and months, potentially years from now, because this isn't going to happen overnight. Ethereum staking, keeping it decentralized, making it more robust and more secure is definitely a long-term thing. It's not going to happen overnight, but with withdrawals now enabled, we can officially say that, well, not now enabled, will be enabled soon, we can finally say that the Ethereum's move to proof of stake is pretty much complete, even though there are other upgrades that we would like to get in, like single slot finality and things like that. The proof of stake as it exists on Ethereum post withdrawals is that kind of feature complete, I guess, like 1.0 version, if you want to call it that. So obviously very exciting. Now, Superfizz also has a bunch of videos that he's shared here that eStaker has been working on to develop a library of YouTube shorts, 1-minute clips that convey a valuable staking information. So you can go check that out for yourself as well. I'll link that in the YouTube description below. And finally, on the Ethereum staking ecosystem, I have a bunch of dot points that I wanted to talk to. So I put this tweet out last week, and I said, the Ethereum staking ecosystem has never been more exciting. We have withdrawals in a few days, and I just spoke about that, so I won't rehash what I just said there. Eigenlayer restaking is on testnet, and I think that restaking generally is going to be a huge theme going forward. I think we really will see something akin to DeFi Summer in 2020, but it's going to be called like StakeFi Summer or something like that, where essentially, as long as there's new money coming into the ecosystem, I can see restaking and StakeFi getting pretty lucrative. And now, in what way can it be lucrative? Well, you can do recursive staking like you've always been able to do it, where essentially you use your LSD as a collateral on a money market. You borrow more ETH and you go and restake it, right? And you have that kind of recursive staking. Obviously, you're taking on leverage to do this, but it's it's still that kind of recursive staking concept there. Now, with restaking, it ups the ante even more because now you add another, I guess, like ingredient to the yield burger here, where you can essentially do that recursive staking with a restaked asset, which is earning its own yield, whether it be token inflation yield or real yield from people paying fees or whatever it is. You're going to have all of these things stacking on top of each other, just like you saw in DeFi Summer, but it's going to be, I guess it's going to be like a hybrid of DeFi Summer and staking, because those staking assets will play within DeFi to get that yield. But I think that that's going to be a pretty big theme, especially, or pretty much only if new money comes in. I think that when it comes to these kind of yield games or these yield farming games, they really only do work when there's new money coming in, because without new money coming in, the yields can't sustain themselves for pretty much most things. I mean, obviously the ETH yield has sustained itself quite well because Ethereum's block space is very valuable, but for most things, it's very hard for the yield to sustain itself because there's just not new money coming in there. So, you could imagine that maybe next year, if we have a new kind of bull market, and with all this new money coming in, that could be a major theme. So I think that restaking generally is going to be pretty big. Obviously, Eigenlayer seems to be the market leader right now, but I'm sure there's going to be others that come online, over the next few years. But I do think that we can get like a StakeFi kind of thing where people go crazy over the juiced up yields because there's all this money sloshing around, and that's usually what kind of starts these, I guess, new bull markets, is when there's all this new money sloshing around. People made money from, I don't know, BTC and ETH going up, and they're going down the risk curve, and they're like, where else can I go? And it's funny because I say that, and then you think about what it could be like for StakeFi, very similar to DeFi, where a lot of people that had a lot of ETH wanted to do stuff with it, so they did it within DeFi. They obviously bought the tokens and things like that as well. Well, you can see the same kind of thing playing out with StakeFi, where people will have their ETH staked, they've got an LSD, and they're like, wow, I want more yield on this. So maybe they use that to stake with Eigenlayer, and they do a restaking there, and then they go leverage that, and they do it more, and then you have juiced yields here, juiced yields there, and there's all this new money coming in, so the yields can sustain themselves for a little bit. So yeah, it's going to get quite speculative, I believe, but that's why I brought up that that's part of the staking ecosystem, this restaking concept, and I think it's going to get quite crazy, especially in a bull market. So next up, we have Rocket Pool's Atlas upgrade, which is coming soon. So this will be going live, I believe it was April 18th, so less than a week after withdrawals go live. It brings with it a host of really exciting things. As I mentioned before, there's going to be that, I've mentioned plenty of times now, there's going to be the ability to spin up 8 ETH mini pools, or convert your 16 ETH mini pools into 8 ETH mini pools, and it's going to open up staking to a lot more people. They recently also increased the deposit cap as well, which got filled pretty quickly. So yeah, I mean, there's all these exciting things coming with Atlas, and I've linked it before, but you can just search Rocket Pool Atlas upgrade on Google and get a full breakdown of what's happening there. So that's another exciting thing. DVT, or distributed validator technology, is on testnets and mainnet. So there is Obel Network, which I've spoken about before, and just a disclosure, I'm an investor in them. There is SSV, Secret Shared Validator Network, and I think there's one other that I'm forgetting the name of right now that is at the forefront. But yeah, they're both on testnets and mainnet, and they're working very well. I mean, I teased it a few weeks ago, but I have some real world and mainnet experience with Obel. So just to tease you guys again there, and it's working quite well, which is really awesome to see. So yeah, that's going to be I think a major theme, and that's why the Ethereum staking ecosystem is very exciting. And then I said more competition in the LSD space, so the liquid staking space. That stuff's going to get so hot, especially if we do get that StakeFi thing I was talking about. You're going to see so many different LSDs. Some of them are going to be outright scams and rugs, so you got to be careful with that, because they can promise you something, and then they can have a function in their contract where they just steal all of your staked ETH, right? And then that LSD that you have would basically be worthless if there was no ETH backing it up. So you've got to be careful there, but I do think there's going to be a lot of legitimate competition in that space as well, because it's going to be so lucrative, especially in a StakeFi summer scenario, or a scenario where the yields can get very, very juiced up. You're going to see this happening, and you're going to see forks happening as well. There's already a project that forked Rocket Pool and forked the smart node stack. I believe it was called Stata, and I think I mentioned them in the past. And yeah, they kind of forked Rocket Pool there, but I'm sure there's going to be others, especially forking Rocket Pool, because the Smart Node stack is such an amazing piece of software, and it's really, really noob friendly as well because of that graphical user interface that you get, and it does a lot of things for you in the back end. So I do see people forking Rocket Pool and trying to do their own thing. So yeah, as I said, like, you need to be cautious. You need to have your wits about you with these sorts of things, and make sure that you kind of check with other people and see if things are legit before you ape all of your ETH into something just because the yields may be high. And this was the same thing that played out in DeFi Summer. You have to be careful. And then last up, I said the MEV capture is evolving. So MEV capture in general, or just the MEV ecosystem in general, is always evolving. There's always new kind of relays coming online, new builders coming online. There's new ways for stakers to capture MEV. I talked the other day about this staking service that has spun up to be MEV optimized. So that kind of stuff is evolving, and that's definitely going to play into those yields that we're going to be seeing over the next couple of years, and potentially juicing those yields up in some sort of way. So that's all going to be happening as well. But yeah, I just thought that was worth mentioning too there. And then I finished off by saying ETH stakers are going to make it. Now, another thing that I didn't mention here that I think is worth talking about for a minute or so is there's a lot of speculation around what the amount of staked ETH is going to be over the next year. I think that people who look at other, and I've talked about this before on the refuel, but I figure it's worth mentioning again. People who look at other chains and look at the amount of staked, amount of token that they have staked, and comparing it to ETH, I think is completely misguided. So, for example, some of these other proof of stake chains, which are delegated proof of stake, by the way, they are not like Ethereum proof of stake. They're delegated proof of stake, has about 70% or more of the assets staked. Now, this is for two reasons. The one reason, the major reason is that most of these networks have, and these tokens have no use on these networks. Like, no one's using them to use the network itself. Everyone's just buying them to speculate on some sort of narrative, and they're just staking it to earn whatever yield the network is offering them. So that's a big part of it. Whereas ETH as an asset has so much other uses than just staking, but in these other networks, it really is just a staking token, right? And secondly is because they are that delegated proof of stake instead of the way Ethereum proof of stake is. And with delegated proof of stake, there is usually only a small set of validators that people delegate their tokens to, essentially. And it's much easier to do that than it is to spin up a new validator for every, you need 32 ETH to spin up a new validator in Ethereum. Now, of course, we have LSDs, which makes it relatively easy, and we have centralized exchange staking, which makes it relatively easy to basically do a pseudo-delegated proof of stake, where essentially you are giving your ETH over to Coinbase, for example, and they're spinning a validator up on your behalf by pulling the funds with other people, because they still need to use 32 ETH to spin up a validator. But it's very different to, it's still like technically very different to how it works in an actual delegated proof of stake system. But I think that first reason, where ETH is just such an awesome asset that people are actually using for so many more things than staking, is a much more important point than the second one. But I think they both account for why, right now you only see, I think it's 15 or 16% of ETH staked, and whereas other networks have 70% of their native token staked. I don't think that ETH is going to get up to that percentage, even in a crazy kind of like StakeFi mania where everyone's staking ETH in order to get juiced up yields or whatever it is. Getting to 70% is going to be incredibly difficult. Now, what do I think is going to be a year from now? I don't know, honestly. I could see it going to 30%. I could see it maybe even going to 40%. Maybe. I mean, it's hard to tell, especially because we don't know what the price is going to be either. And I've said it before that I think that ETH stakers aren't very sensitive to price, but in like a pretty, in a crazy bull market where we have a lot of staking yields being juiced, especially because withdrawals are enabled as well, so it's really easy to enter and exit, there's going to be a bit of craziness there as well. And this also assumes that there isn't some sort of validator cap put in place, as I've talked about before, where there could be a validator cap put in place where only 30 million ETH can be active at any given time, and that brings the yields down because say there's like 50 million ETH staked, but only 30 million is active at any given time, and the yields are gonna be potentially less. So there is some unknowns there, but yeah, I definitely don't think that we're going to see 70% of ETH staked anytime soon. Maybe if ever, but I don't think that's a bearish thing for ETH at all. As I said, ETH is so much more than a staking token, right? And ETH is worth more than every other proof of stake network combined, and it's all and the amount of ETH that is staked, dollar amount, is worth right now at 15%, is worth more than every other network's market cap put together, I believe. I think I looked that up a few weeks ago. Maybe a couple months ago. I don't know if that stat's still correct to date, but you see the order of magnitude difference here between a lot of these networks. Their market caps are very, very different to Ethereum's market cap. So again, looking at just the raw percentage doesn't give you the full picture. But anyway, that's 15 minutes spent on Ethereum staking. Moving on to the rest of the news. So Tony from mevboost.pix has another great visualization that he's added to the website. So now it's displaying the average MEV boost payment per relay builder, relay/builder/validator over different time frames in box plots. Now this is really cool. So you can see from this image here, MEV boost profits over the last week per staking service, essentially. So you can see here that he's got the different staking services such as Lido, Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, and so on and so forth. And then you can see what their rewards look like. So obviously, a week isn't going to give you enough data to have any great conclusions from, but it's a big enough sample set, I think, to get some kind of conclusions from it. So you can see here that most staking services with their MEV captures pretty similar. You can see that Lido, Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, they all look very, very similar, with Coinbase being slightly ahead, I guess. And then the rest of them are pretty similar. You can see that Huobi is the outlier here. It got the bulk of it. But as I said, like a week's worth of MEV profit revenue is not enough. I'd love to see this on a month or 6 months or a year. I would bet that they all look very, very similar. Now, this can inform you about where you want to stake, like which LSD you want to stake with in order to earn the most MEV related revenue. But again, like taking it on the longer time frames, I would say that this would look very similar, with maybe rarely one outlier on the longer time frames. But yeah, generally, I don't think it matters too much here on the MEV boost profits front. But anyway, you can check out these charts for yourself. You can go to mevboost.pix, which will be linked in the YouTube description below. All right, so Jesse Pollack tweeted out that the BlobFish, which is the, I guess, official mascot of ERP 4844, the ASCII art is now in the Nimbus code base. So this is pretty cool. If you remember, the panda was the official mascot of the merge, and when we did the merge, all the clients in the terminal window showed the pandas merging. So for ERP 4844, it's going to be this BlobFish thing, which is kind of ugly, but I guess that once the 4844 gets activated on mainnet, you'll be seeing this in your terminal. So pretty cool to see that Nimbus already has this merged into their clients. As I've said before, or over the last couple of weeks, 4844 is making amazing progress. The client teams are doing a lot of great work getting their clients up to scratch, and it still seems to be on track for towards the end of the year. So just wanted to highlight that. That's just another little cool thing, and you'll be seeing more of this BlobFish around over the next few months. All right, so Ben Edgington has listed some of his favorite recent upgrades to his Upgrading Ethereum book. So it now supports dark mode, there is a search function, and the annotated fork choice section has been annotated. Now, for those of you who don't remember what this is, basically it's Ben Edgington writing a book called, an ebook, I guess you could call it, called Upgrading Ethereum, where he adds a bunch of different annotations and information to each part of the Ethereum beacon chain and everything that goes in it. So you can go check this out for yourself if you would like to. Most of the sections I believe are still not. Oh no, he's done about half of the sections I believe here, so you can go check out the sections that are already done. But as I said, yeah, a bunch of new things like dark mode, which I can toggle here for you to see. Yeah, it's dark mode and light mode going on there. There's a search function, and then there is also annotated fork choice, which he links to here, so you can go check that out for yourself. All right, so another update from the Ethereum on ARM Twitter account, where they've said they have synced an Arbitrum node running on an ARM64 ROC 5B board. Some data to go along with it. They've synced using the Nitro client. Sync time took about 2 weeks, syncing from a snapshot. The database size is under 300 gig, and the L1 node is another ROC 5B board that they're talking to. So I think this sync time, even though it seems long here, may be a symptom of Nitro just not being optimized to have a shorter sync time. Obviously, not many people are running Arbitrum nodes, Arbitrum 1 nodes right now, but I haven't looked into the exact reason as to why it took this long to sync it. Now, I mean, it can be a confluence of things, such as this being a low-powered board, obviously. ROC 5B board is much less powerful than a enterprise grade server or something like that. As I said, it could be unoptimized as a client as well for syncing. The snapshot that they synced from could have been pretty far in the past, and there are maybe not much nodes to download the data from as well. There's not many peers to download the data from. So yeah, as I said, there could be a number of different reasons here. I'd be curious to know what the actual reasons are, and maybe the Ethereum on ARM Twitter account will follow this up with another tweet later on. But I just thought it was cool that they were running an Arbitrum Nitro node here, which anyone can do, by the way, but they're running it on a ROC 5B board, which is always very cool. And, you know, I was thinking about this just today, actually. I was looking at my little Proteus box that I've got here. For those of you who don't remember, the Proteus box is a ROC 5B board loaded with... it comes preloaded with the Rocketpool Smart Node stack, and then I've flashed mine and I've re-imaged mine so I can put Solid validators on there. But essentially, it's a very low powered device. It's akin to like a Raspberry Pi, and the fact that I can run an Ethereum full node on there, like an execution layer client and consensus layer client, and a bunch of validators off of it, Solid validators off of it, and it hasn't skipped a beat, is honestly amazing to me. It really does speak to the fact that you can run these sorts of things on such low powered hardware and it'll work, right? And I just think it's very, very cool, obviously. But anyway, I'm going to leave that one at that. Moving on. So this is something I really wanted to talk about. So you guys remember that MEV exploit that happened last week, where essentially over $20 million was stolen from an MEV bot due to an exploit in the MEV Boost Relay software. Well, it turns out today that the 3 million USDT that was stolen has actually been frozen by Tether, the company that issues USDT. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is not because this is something that we haven't seen happen before. We've seen Tether and Circle blacklist USDT and USDC for different reasons in the past, but it's usually been because of a kind of like an exchange hack, or it was a law enforcement thing or something like that. But what they've done here by blacklisting, I guess, essentially, what is fair game, a lot of people have the same opinion here, is very, I don't know, slippery slope, I guess you could call it. Now, in saying that, I mean, we all know that Circle and Tether can, have this blacklist functionality, right? We all know that USDC and USDT are centralized stablecoins, and you really shouldn't expect any features of decentralization from them. But why this is kind of a slippery slope here is because unless Tether got a law enforcement action notice to do this, it's them kind of saying, well, we think that these MEV bots stealing assets from users via sandwich attacks is fine, but the other people kind of like attacking them through this exploit that we saw last week is not fine. And this comment here from this Twitter account said, it's okay for it's okay to MEV plebs, but not bots. And then lol basically, and then Zach said it's disappointing, right? So, and then Zach also said, they likely received a court order to do this, which is even, I think, worse if they did, because it means that the court is basically seeing this as something to be, what's the word I'm looking for here? As something that's, I guess, like illegal, or that the funds were stolen, but MEVing users and stealing their assets via sandwich attacks is apparently fine. So this could be, I guess, a number of different things of why this court order was issued, if there was one. It could be the court not understanding this. It could be the person that was running, or the people that were running this MEV bot that got their assets stolen, going to a court and basically saying, hey, you need to freeze these assets because these are actually our assets, and not explaining to them the way they obtain those assets. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation here, but I thought this was pretty egregious, because I believe this is the first time that Tether has blacklisted without an accompanying court order, and blacklisted something that isn't a clear-cut case of a hack or a scam or something like that, or as I said, a court order. So yeah, very slippery slope here, very weird, but a good reminder that whenever you use centralized stablecoins like USDT and USDC, you are always at risk of them being frozen. Now, there was some discussion in the Daily Gwei Discord channel about this today as well. Someone was asking, I believe it was Tim Robinson was asking, what does this actually mean? Like, where do the funds go after they've been, blacklisted or frozen? Well, because these things are just basically IOUs, what Tether can do is they can basically say that, okay, well, this USDT, this 3 million USDT that's in this address is not actually able to be redeemed for real US dollars anymore. So because of that, essentially they can just reissue that USDT as clean, pristine USDT that's backed by those US dollars in a bank account, and this USDT basically goes to zero. It's not worth anything anymore, but it's frozen, so it's not worth anything anyway. But there's no kind of weird accounting going on. It still matches up one for one because obviously Tether controls all of that. But yeah, anyway, I just wanted to give some opinions on that. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I'm always interested in hearing other people's opinions on this. But yeah, I thought it was just quite an egregious use of Tether's power here. All right, we have an update from Stackr Labs today. So they've introduced something called the Stackr SDK, which is to be used to build micro-rollups in Web2 programming languages. So just a reminder about what Stackr Labs is. They're basically building software that makes it really easy to spin up rollups and on Ethereum, and now you can do that with their Stackr SDK, and they're calling this something called micro rollups. So basically, what a micro rollup is meant to be, and they say it here. The concept of micro rollups is where an individual functions within a decentralized app are developed, optimized, and maintained as independent state machines. Referencing the microservices analog, you can think about regular rollups as to micro rollups similar to monoliths to microservices or VMs to containers. And for the programmers and the coders out there and engineers out there, you'll know what that means. But basically, you can visualize the differences as well. In this blog post, Stackr Labs has visuals of how this differs and what they're building here. So you can go check that out, and obviously check out the blog post. It's linked in the YouTube description below. But I really like this because there are a bunch of these, I guess, roll-up as a service projects popping up now, and I've talked about some of them before. I've talked about Stackr Labs before. I've talked about Sovereign. Obviously, we have OP Stack. So there's going to need to be a specialization among them. They can't all just be doing the same thing because obviously, not all of them are going to win if they all just say, okay, we're doing roll-up as a service, spin up an optimistic or a ZK roll-up in 2 clicks. It needs to be more than that, right? And it needs to be more than that to attract developers and to attract innovators to these technologies. And I think that's what Stackr Labs has realized, and that's what they're trying to do with this concept of micro roll-ups, which I think is very cool. So it's just further modularization, further modularizing the stack from that monolithic stack that we've had, which I think is obviously very cool. But you can go check out the blog post for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so Fire, the app that protects you from, I guess, like hacks and scams and frauds and things like that, that I've talked about a bunch on the refuel before, announced today that they have raised a $3.5 million round to make Web3 safe by making it simple here. So I guess congrats to them on the round. This is really awesome to see that Fire has raised this round because as I've said before, I use Fire. I've suggested it to you guys to use in the past because I believe that it's a step up above what we're used to from wallets and from wallet security. And for those of you who need a refresher on Fire, basically I've run through examples of what happens before, but it essentially breaks down what's happening in the transaction. So it'll tell you what assets you're sending out, such as if you're doing a swap, if you're swapping ETH for DAI, for example, it'll say that you're sending this many assets out to be used to swap and this much to be used as a gas fee, and then you're bringing assets in and it'll tell you what assets you're bringing in. And the same is true for other more complicated transactions, such as NFT related transactions as well. So yeah, obviously a very valuable tool that I think a lot of people have been using for a little while now. So yeah, just congrats to them on this raise. Great to see that people out there are willing to fund these things because these things are definitely very important for the future of Ethereum and I guess the wider ecosystem at large. All right, so an interesting project I came across that was launched by GFX Labs here is something called Web3 Sheets, which is a Google Sheets add-on to easily and intuitively bring blockchain data into your spreadsheets. You can install the add-on now and enjoy 100 requests without signing up. So if you're anything like me, you use spreadsheets a lot for different crypto-related things, and getting data of things like crypto asset prices has traditionally been quite painful because the different APIs will obviously limit you a lot of times. There'll be limits, kind of global limits, where essentially you have to just keep refreshing and hope that someone else hasn't refreshed at the same time as you in order to call that API and get that data for you. And it's usually not very streamlined either, because you have to fiddle around with a bunch of things. Well, what GFX Labs has done here is they've made it much simpler to essentially do everything that you've probably traditionally been doing with traditional APIs, and just basically simplify the entire process for you. So you can check out this thread here, obviously, for an explanation of what features come with it, and what you can use it for, such as portfolio tracking, tax preparations, tracking things like DAO revenues. And I mean, really, the list here is quite long, and as I said, you can check this out for yourself, and you can also download Web3 sheets from the Google Workspace Marketplace here as well. And you can check out the bunch of examples they've got here of different ways to use this data. But yeah, I just thought this was something worth highlighting because, as I said, I use Google Sheets a lot for crypto-related things. It's basically my Bible, and I think that that you guys do as well. So definitely go check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so Voltz has announced Voltz V2, which is a non-custodial clearinghouse for any derivative instrument. And they continue by saying the generalizable design creates a building block upon which any decentralized exchange can operate, including Voltz V1. This allows traders to use a single margin account across multiple exchanges. Now, when you see this kind of terminology here used, such as a non-custodial clearinghouse for any derivative instrument, you may be wondering, what the hell exactly is that, right? Well, these kind of things, these derivative instruments, right? They are an absolutely massive market, guys. Like inside and outside of crypto. Outside of crypto, it's huge. It's a quadrillion-dollar market. Derivatives, for anyone that's learnt about them, you'll know just how big it is, right? And bringing these, derivative instruments on chain to be played around with, to be speculated on in a non-custodial way is absolutely huge. And that's what Voltz Labs is doing with Voltz V2, is they're bringing this on chain, and I want to act as a clearinghouse for any of these derivative instruments that are on chain, on Ethereum and layer 2s here. And I should also disclose that I'm an investor in Voltz Lab. I invested in them quite a while ago now. But yeah, this is what they've launched today. And you can check out the full breakdown here of what it is in the Twitter thread. There's also going to be I believe, a community town hall on Discord. You may miss it by the time this video goes out or when you watch this video, but you can join their Discord channel anyway to go ask everything about this and what's happening with it. But yeah, this kind of V2, or I guess like a rollout of V2 will be phased throughout 2023, with the first version set to launch in an MVP state with Voltz V1's VAMM acting as the first exchange operating on top of the generalizable margin engine. So as I said, anything can basically talk to this, and it's not launched today, they've just announced it today. But yeah, you can learn more about this for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, last up, just wanted to shout out that if you did kind of miss the refuel yesterday, at least you got 2 hours of me on the weekly roll-up, which happened on, I believe, Friday. So I filled in for Ryan on the weekly roll-up, obviously with David here. We had a wide-ranging discussion about everything that happened last week. So if you haven't watched that yet, you can go check that out for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But hopefully, if you were able to catch it before today's episode, that did keep you satiated, and maybe you felt it was like just an extra long refuel, basically like a hybrid roll-up / refuel, right? But anyway, you can go check that out for yourself, and I think that's going to be it for today's episode. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.